Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and radio. Yes, it's official. For the last 3 weeks or so, I think we have our own radio channels in addition to our own radio connection with Business Talk Radio and our own television platform. So that's all because of you and your loyalty. So thanks so much. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Wise Ones. Joining me is someone who has had such an impact on my life, in my life. I'm so grateful to him. His name is Red O'Loughlin. And he has accomplished so much in his life. In addition to being an author, he's also my book coach. And yesterday we launched the second book we've worked on together. I had never written a book before. And in less than 11 months, both of them achieved #1 status with Amazon. So yesterday we launched it and #1. So thank you so much. Let's bring him out. He's a co-host. He's a talking head, which means he's an expert on our presentation team, Talking Heads. He's also our panelist on Talking Heads, and he's an elevated listener, which means he's been certified. He listens at a higher level. Let's welcome him to the show. Hello.
Thank you so very much, Dr. JACALYN, and congratulations again on being #1 best-selling author on Amazon and doing it twice in 1 year. Most people can't even write 2 books in 1 year, much less actually get to the #1 level. So again, I think kudos to you for that accomplishment, because you did all the work. All I do is just say, hey, this is the road you need to walk down for a little while.
Well, thank you. You're very humble, but with your military background, you kept me in line, you kept me on point, and I really appreciate it. And I like you too. So thank you to you, and thank you to your beautiful wife for all the support that she's provided as well. We've got a great guest backstage who's going to entertain us and educate us, as well as provide inspiration and hope. But before we bring him out, I want to spotlight you, Red. And for people who are watching for the first time or listening for the first time, please tell us about your background. And you obviously are very wise and have seen a lot in your life. Tell us more.
Oh, let's see here. We have way back when, probably sophomore in high school, my first love, long before I met my wife, was chemistry. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to practice it because I got an invitation to Vietnam. However, I did join the Navy, and the following, this was Sunday afternoon, I said, I do. Well, the following Wednesday night, I said, I do again to my wife. 31 plus years with the Navy, and here in another month or so, it's going to be 54 years with my wife. So a long, long time together, and we just love everything we do. I retired from the corporate world about 17 years ago, a while. And nowadays I write almost literally on a daily basis. I publish books. I write my own books. I speak. Most of the subjects I talk about and write about are on health and wellness. My niche is longevity. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat a symptom, you'll always treat the symptom. So my focus is what causes things to happen. If I can stop this from happening, then hopefully things will be better. The show that we're doing immediately after this one is called Talking Heads. In that particular show, this next few weeks, we're talking about heart health. We talked about aging, the causes of aging, and some aspects of Alzheimer's disease and its causes and options. Then I did a series on how to write and publish a book for free. Absolutely no money out of your pocket. And then this series of Talking Heads is talking about heart health. Today, we're going to get into some of the heart diseases and its causes and what you can do about it. Some people believe that once you have a cardiovascular disease, you're limited your life. There's nothing you can do. And that's not true. There's a lot of things you can do. But those are the things that I do. And I've been working with Dr. JACALYN now for, almost a year and a half, I guess, maybe slightly longer than that. And we just seem to meld very nicely together with her writing style. And she follows instructions very well, I'll tell you that. And so that's always a help when you're working with somebody who says, this is what you need to do. And she goes and does it. So, you can't ask for much more than that. So going back to Dr. JACALYN now.
Thank you so much, Red. I appreciate it. And you better get some rest because I already started last night on the next series of books, which are for children, and they're all about listening skills. So I'll give you a short break and then we're back at it. Okay.
I appreciate it.
I want to introduce our guest. Our guest has written over 200 stories. Okay, we're talking about 2 books. This is 200 stories that are about supernatural, crime thrillers, heavy metal, zombies, all kinds of things that I definitely want to know more about. His name is Armand Rosamilia. I hope I said that right. Let's welcome him to the program. Hello there. Welcome, sir.
How's it going?
Nice to see you. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Rosamilia.
Rosamilia.
Which means 1,000 roses in Italian.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
I used to try to use that in my 20s to pick up in a bar. Never worked. They would always go, "Oh, that's really nice. Thank you for the drink," and then they would walk off and be with someone else.
Was this in Italy or was this in the States?
This was in New Jersey. I grew up in. I'm a Jersey boy, so I grew up in New Jersey. So those Jersey girls are pretty tough. I married and divorced 2 of them. I had to come down here to Jacksonville, Florida, to find a woman to marry that actually can put up with me. So that's
oh my
pretty
gosh.
good.
I just have to share with you that I live in New Jersey part of the year and in Florida part of the year, so that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Jacksonville has a very near and dear place to me. I still have some family there. My folks live there. They're passed on by now, but you're familiar with the little town down south called Orange Park?
Oh yeah. That's part of the area. Part of Jacksonville grabbed Orange Park and everything.
Yeah,
and we go out there a lot.
My dad was mayor there for a few years.
Oh, okay.
Oh, how about that?
And then down at Daytona Beach, there was a sheriff by the name of Red O'Loughlin. So my dad's name is the same as mine. There was a sheriff down there also. So it's interesting that we rarely ever run into many O'Loughlins, but that area of Florida seemed to have more than a couple.
Yeah, my parents are down in Daytona. My parents are living in Daytona now. So it's weird.
I feel like we should all sing "It's a Small World." And we do have a comment from our wonderful friend Adam, who's in the UK. Hello, all. This is my type of podcast. Fantastic. Thanks for being with us. So, Armand, 200, that's a big number. I mean, how long did it take you to do this?
I've been writing. I got my first story published in 1988. I was still a senior in high school, and I've been full-time now for this will be my 11th year of able to make enough money doing this as a career. So I write. My goal is 1,096 words a day, which means 400,000 words for the year, and I plan probably about 350,000 of those out ahead of time, figuring out which books and which stories I'm going to be writing. And then it gives me some leeway to write more. Although in the last 3 or 4 years, I've written close to 500,000. So I rarely take a break, which sometimes drives my wife crazy. I always have the laptop with me whenever we go anywhere, and I hardly ever know what day it is, and I hardly ever put a pair of pants on unless she yells at me to take her to dinner or something.
By the way, I admire how organized you are. I love organization, everything in its place behind you. It looks great.
That's actually, I have people coming over next week. We're doing so my name is actually Armando. And so growing up, everybody called me Mondo. And so we do a podcast now. We're almost at 300 episodes called The Mondo Method, which is kind of a joke that I came up with for the way I write. So I write the first 15 minutes at the top of every hour, and I get about 600 to 800 words in, and it's that pressure of I only have 15 minutes to write, and then the other 45 minutes of the hour I play around. And last year I said, you know what, I want to invite people to the house, like do a writer's retreat. So we had 8 or 9 people here, and we called it MondoCon as a joke. And my wife takes off, Thursday through Monday, and she cooks all the meals, and she absolutely loved it. She's born here in Jacksonville, so very southern. There's 10 people here. We're going to feed 810, and so we're doing it again next week. But my wife said your little friends can't come and play unless you clean up your office. So I did the dusting and organized a lot of stuff. My office is packed with stuff. This is like when I was 12. This is like all my comic book stuff, all my baseball cards, all of my books. We have about 700 Funko Pops in the house in various rooms. We have themes for all of the rooms. So my wife is also a ridiculous collector of things like me. So it's a lot of again, there's a lot of stuff in our in our house.
I remember when I was in high school, I think there was a documentary. I'm not sure it's a documentary, but Mondo Connie. I'm not sure if anybody remembers that, but Mondo that's when you said Mondo, that's the first thing that came to my mind was that old movie, probably back in the early '60s, if I had to guess.
That's funny. Yeah, now everybody thinks it's Mondo for the Mandalorian, the Star Wars thing. I'm like, no.
Ah, yes.
I've been Mondo since the 70s.
Tell us about these 15 minutes. I love this. This is discipline and structure. And by the end of the 15 minutes, you have to have accomplished what your task. And do you ever say to yourself, I'm not going to do it for this hour. I'm not going to do it for this day because I need to take a mental break, or no?
No, because if I'm looking at 1,096 words, it's two breaks. I'm literally writing for a half an hour each day, unless I have a deadline or something is coming up, or I know I'm not going to be able to write the next day for whatever reason. So there's really not pressure there. I'm also working on, behind me is my board, and I have about 14 or 15 open projects right now. And those could be short stories, those could be books, they could be novels, novellas, whatever. And so I'm working on something. So I could start at 10 o'clock is usually my first one. And at 10, I sit down and I'll just, if something is a deadline, that's the one I'm working on. But otherwise, I'll pick one, whatever I have an idea in my head, and I'll write for that 15 minutes. And then the next 45 minutes, I'm getting coffee, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm wandering around, I'm reading comic books online or playing my baseball game. I'm doing other things, or I'm doing promotion or interviews or whatever. And then at the top of the next hour at 11 a.m., I might still be working in that project, or I might just switch to another project. And a lot of times I'll write 3 different projects a day like that. Right now I'm in crunch deadline. I have about a week to write about 10,000 words on the 4th book in my latest series. So I'm trying to get that done before people get here. So that's really been the focus for the last couple of weeks now. Although I still jump in and I'll write other stuff in the meantime as well.
Armand, I don't know
Armand,
very much. Go ahead, Dr. Jack.
Oh, sorry. I just had a follow-up question. So for our friends who are watching or listening and they're not a writer, they're not an author, how many words is a page? How many words go on a typical page?
I'm usually writing about 600 to 800 words in that 15 minutes, which is usually a little bit over a page. I also write live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Twitch, which most people think is just for gamers. But there's a lot of writers on there, and I'll write live, and I'll write a short story, and I only have the title on the page, and you're seeing me in real time for about an hour and a half writing a short story, or at least a couple of pages of something. And then I don't do the Mondo method. Then I'll hit the next page, and then I'll take a break, and then people are live in the chat. They'll ask me questions. They'll joke around. A lot of times I'll say, hey, I need a character name. And somebody's throwing something out in the chat, which is fun. So it's kind of interactive in that way. And I'm writing either chapters of things, or I'm writing a brand new short story. I do it for NaNoWriMo. I write every day in there for NaNoWriMo in November. And so it's something else that I have to do. I can't take a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday off from writing, because people, dozens of people are going to be on there wondering where I am, and they send messages. Hey, it's after 1 o'clock. Where are you?
I love this idea, by the way. That is fabulous. I'm going to have to go over to Twitch and follow you there. We were on there for a little while, and we had a lot of people putting comments that were pornographic. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Red, over to you.
Yeah, likewise, Armand. I had been writing and publishing every day. I think I had 630 days in a row that I had not missed publishing something. And all of a sudden I'm not on publishing, and people who were, what happened to Red? Well, it turned out I had COVID and I was down for a couple of weeks, but I had people, well, he's always here. He's not here again today. So I know exactly what you're saying, is that people have an expectation. You're there, and when you're not there, that's a problem. But what I wanted to say just a short while ago is that you seem to cover a lot of different areas. I know very many people don't have the ability to do fiction and nonfiction. You do that. You do zombies and thrillers and crime and horror. And it just seems like that mind to jump back and forth between this thing and this thing, especially if you're writing 2 or 3 different things almost concurrently at the same time. That takes a lot of focus and clarity just to keep that plot or the people or whatever's going on. Do you have any crutches or tips that you could tell people about how do you keep a particular character in mind or a particular scene?
I can't. It's in my head. I'm a total pantser, which means I don't outline at all. I'm writing a story because I want to read this story. I'm writing a story that I haven't read yet. And so for me, it is just, what do I think is next? What do I think it's next? And that break of writing for that 15 minutes and then having 45 minutes of doing other stuff, but also thinking about the characters, also thinking about, am I going to write in this story again, and what's going to happen next, and trying to figure things out. And for me, it's that typical, I could beat myself up for 2 or 3 hours and have no idea what's going on. And then as soon as I go take a shower, as soon as we go out to dinner, as soon as we sit down to eat dinner, whatever, then all of a sudden it'll hit me out of nowhere, and I'll get the idea, or at least kind of a thread of where that story might be going. And it could be any of the stories that I'm currently working on, which is a lot of fun. But then I immediately have to run back to the computer and sit down and even if it's just take a few notes of, this is what's going to happen in a future chapter, or, here's a conflict, whatever it is. And that really helps me to focus. If I write myself into a corner, I don't sweat it. I go back and I'll do a rewrite, or I'll just go to another story and I'll just write somewhere else. And I never worry about the genres when I'm first coming up with an idea for a story. I write pretty much anything except for romance. And I wrote horror. I wrote a lot of horror, especially in the 90s. When I was in my 20s, and I wrote a ton of horror short stories. They got published in zines, and luckily none of those stories exist anymore because they were all god awful. But that's your first million words you write are garbage, and you write it and you throw it out, kind of thing. And that was definitely true for me. But then I'm still cannibalizing some of those old stories, some of the ideas or characters or whatever, for future stories. So nothing was wasted. Nothing that I write is wasted. If I write a short story on Twitch, it's going to go to an anthology somewhere. If they reject it, it goes as a short story on my Patreon page. If after it lands there, if I can't send it anywhere else, it goes into a short story collection. So there's everything I'm writing. If I think it's good enough, is going to be published at some point somewhere. And sometimes a story I sit down and I'm writing out, and I know it's awful, and I know it's not making any sense, but it's finished the story. I have to just finish this story, wrap it up, and it might just be trunked. It might never see the light of day, but there might be some things in this story that I think I can use on a future story.
How do you manage to balance the time between your creative writing and your editing and proofing?
Those are two very, very separate mindsets and things for me. So right now I have 2 books that are coming back from publishers that I need to go through the edits. I'm very lucky because I write a pretty clean first draft. So usually it's some typos. Usually I'll there's things that I can't not say. So while somebody will say in a story, we'll write, you're pretending, I always say you're making pretend. And I've said that, I say that in my normal, like since I was a little kid, make pretend. In fact, that's the name of one of my short story collections, Make Pretend. And so there's a lot of the same mistakes I make and the editor, my main editor who does all my self-published stuff, catches all that. And then a lot of the different publishers, they'll catch like the same ones and they'll underline and say, seriously, you said this again, and I can't help it. And as I'm doing the first draft and my edit on it, I normally don't edit until the story's done. I'll do the typos. I'll just run it through spelling and grammar. I give it to my beta readers and I'm reading it as well. And that's my edit. And then I go and look at what the beta readers found and I edit it again. And then I'll give it to my editor or I'll give it to the publisher and they'll send it back. But I never touch edits until the afternoon. Like once we're done with this interview, then I'll jump on one of the books and I'll start going through line by line and doing the edits. But it gets tough when you have a lot of products, a lot of books coming out at once. In the last 7 days, I had 3 book releases and 1 anthology release where I had a story in. And it just so happens that all the publishers all dumped them in within, literally from last Tuesday to this Tuesday. So in 7 or 8 days, I had 4 different releases come out, which makes it hard to promote. It makes it hard to get out there and talk about them.
Well, congratulations on that.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you, I think.
What software do you use for your writing?
So I, about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a computer crash, and it crashed and it killed the external drive as well. So I lost stories. I lost a bunch, probably about 20 old stories in there I could never find. So I freak out now. So this is my play computer, and I have another monitor for Twitch, and then I have another computer that is connected to the internet, but there's nothing on it except for Google Drive. So I'll write literally on Google Drive, and then I immediately save it to the computer. I save it to an external drive. I email it to myself, put it on this computer, which goes to an external drive, and it goes to the hard drive. And then I use the cloud, and I use one other program I can't think of that everything automatically dumps to that one too. So I save like 7 or 8 versions of everything that I do every day. And I know it's overkill, but it's I live in fear of like when I'm putting my short story collections together, I'm like, oh, I remember this story, and I go look for it, and I realize, oh, that's gone. That story is gone, and it had never been published, and I had never emailed it to myself, and so that story is literally just gone, and that's depressing.
Dr. JACALYN, I think we're nearing break time, aren't we?
Yes, I was just going to say we're going to take a break, but when we come back, Armand, I'd really love for you to share with our audience. You've been writing for a long time. I just started. So to me, the way things are seems like, oh, it's always been that way. What has the role of technology been in terms of assisting you or preventing you or being an encumbrance or a learning experience? How has technology impacted your work as a full-time writer? So would you be okay with us coming back with that?
No, that's awful. No, I'm just kidding.
Fantastic. And if you would like to read from any of your stories or your books, that would be fabulous.
Sounds good.
All right. So right now we're going to take a break. We're going to take a moment, and then we'll be back here on USA Global TV and Radio. Stay with us.
Take a moment.
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 So I've had the privilege of photographing some incredible people over the years, and during each shoot I've asked the subject to close their eyes and take themselves to a peaceful place just for a few seconds. I've found that this really helps to refresh the energy between the camera and the subject. They had an energy that was quite special and quite different from the rest of the shoot. The collection grew, and now it feels the right time to use it for something good. I think it'd be amazing if we could help to raise awareness and involve people in the discussion about mental health. So what we're asking to do is for everyone to upload their own self-portraits. all of these portraits will become part of a massive artwork. I'm really excited to see this project go from hundreds of pictures to thousands of pictures. Essentially, an ever-evolving artwork that says we're all in this together.
Close your eyes and take a moment.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at dianefloydboehm.com. Visit dianefloydboehm.com. That's dianefloydboehm.com.
Put together, and your stories would be released in there. And there were big magazines that you could still find on the shelves, but most of the especially horror, most of it was zines. Once it was some kid in his basement putting these together and having mom or dad Xerox them at work on the printer at work and selling them for 50 cents or $1, whatever it was. And so everything was self-addressed stamped envelope. There was no internet. There was none of that. So we would find places that listed other zines, and you would send your stories out, and you would have to print them. You would have to make copies of your story. I used to have a little a word processor that I used, and all you could do was type the story and print it out, and then I would have to go and have copies of it Xeroxed. And if I sent it and it got rejected and the person sent me back the rejection letter, but he didn't send me my copy back. Then I have to go and make another copy. And, to keep track of all of that and check your mailbox every day. I mean, that's what we did. Now, it's all online. There's either certain publishers have forms that you attach a Word doc of your story, or you put it in the body of an email, or you just attach it to the email, and it's so much easier to keep track. There's so much technology that you can keep track of. I have, I think, 27 short stories right now that are out there that I'm waiting for an acceptance or a rejection from. And there are sites that I use to keep track of all of those, as well as an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm nothing escapes, nothing is out there. And I say, oh, wait a minute, I wrote that story and I sent it out a year ago and it just disappeared. So all of that really helps. For me, I feel like I'm 52. I feel like I'm 152 when it comes to technology, and my kids are all in their 20s, and they always make fun of me. And I'll always say, "Hey, help me with this or help me with that." I mean, Twitch was the same way. I had no idea how to do anything. And my 21-year-old, she basically said, "Dad, here's how you do this," and she showed me what to do. And I had another author friend who had been on Twitch for a while, and he literally had to make a video and say, these are the steps you need to take. And I say to him on the video, I said, make pretend I'm a 5-year-old and I'm sleeping. And that's how you're trying to explain this to me, because I have no idea what any of this means. I don't know what any of the things you said. So it's a learning thing. I mean, on my podcast, the Mondo Method podcast, me and another author, Chuck Buda, he is 4 or 5 years now into publishing, even though we're the same age, and he embraced all the technology and everything. So when we started the podcast, the idea was, well, I'm the 30-year veteran and I'm going to teach you how to do this. And the reality is he's teaching me every week all of the new things to use, all of the shortcuts and all the different things for publishing and all that. There was no Amazon back then, but in 2009, I embraced it, and I jumped in with ebooks, and I took off from there. So I'm grateful for all of it. But anytime anybody puts something brand new in my face, it's the immediate, like, no, I'm good enough. I'm good. I'm making enough money kind of thing. And then I have to talk myself into maybe this will work.
I love that you shared that. And if you could send me that video for Twitch and how to figure it out, I really appreciate it, because it's still...
Yeah, he's actually got it. It's actually live on YouTube. He
it
has
is? Okay.
Up there. Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you. And Red, go ahead. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, we talked about your creativeness. We talked about your editing. You talked about your tracking your different stories and books and things. Obviously, there's been a change in the way you market your materials nowadays with the technology. How do you market a crime thriller versus a contemporary fiction or a novel or something? I mean, obviously you have different genres that you have publications in. How do you choose how to market something? Has that changed a whole lot, or is it more driven by the genre?
It's more genre driven for me. So again, for years I did horror, and I had a really good system that I would update for which places to advertise, which conventions to go to, what other authors would share my stuff in their newsletter, and I would share theirs, and just things like that. And then when I started doing crime thrillers, 2016, Dirty Deeds, the first book, came out, and I'm writing book 11 now. So in those 5 years, 6 years, I've really had to kind of start from ground zero, start from the beginning, and figure out, okay, which of these different markets will take, crime thriller books. Which of these places, like, I'm going to do an Amazon ad, but I'm also going to do a BookBub ad. I'm also going to do a Twitter ad, and I'm also going to do a Robin Reads and Read Freely, and the millions of other places you can pay to get out there. And obviously, you continue to go for a BookBub ad. So all of these different things, the approach is a little different. From crime thriller, it's a lot harder to be seen because it is such a bigger marketplace than horror. It's about 10 times the amount of readers. which means there's 10 times the chance you're going to get lost in it. And again, I'm writing nonfiction as well. I'm writing supernatural thrillers. I'm writing hardcore zombie stuff. I'm writing so many different things over the years that it's hard to put them out. So like just in the last 4 days, I've had The Price came out, which is co-written with John Quick. That's a heavy metal horror book. I've had a short story, a splatterpunk, which is an extreme short story in an anthology. Counting Bodies Like Counting Sheep was the name of that book. I have a weird Western that came out. I co-wrote with Chuck Buda, who we do the podcast together. And then I've had a book from a company called San Miguel's Treasure, which is a monster book during a salvage operation. So 4 very, very different stories. And I'm expected to promote all 4 of those and all at the same time. So that was the struggle. But I sat down and said, okay, what promoting sites can I use for each one? Which ones can I use for all of them that cover more just genre fiction in general? And so that's the challenge of those hours when I'm not writing every day, when I'm not doing other things, is just to update that list. And I have a book which is about 8 or 9 pages of those, and I'll write in the genres. And I'm constantly adding to it, and I'm constantly saying this one doesn't work, that one doesn't work, and keeping track of Amazon ads and BookBub and BookBub ads and all these other things too. It takes a big chunk of my day every day. You know, I have Data Sprout is up, and it pulls all of my Amazon sales every day from all the different Amazon sites, so I can see what I'm doing there. And then just, to keep track of royalties from various publishers that are coming in. And if I do a book sale, how much did I make there? And the book signings. And when I spend money on advertising, keeping track of that. So there's a lot of clerical work that comes along with it's a business. And I think that's what a lot of new authors, I mentor a lot of newer authors. And that's one of the first things they say is, well, I just want to write. Well, you then do that, then write. And if that's your passion, if you want this to be a hobby, if you want this to be, pick up girls at the bar by telling them you're a writer, then knock yourself out. If you want to do this instead of doing your day job that you hate and make money doing that, then this is your job. This is a business. These are the things that you have to do. So it's that mindset. Anything I do, I look and I say, is this part of the brand? Is this going to help me long term? Whether it's doing interviews, whether it's my podcast or Twitch or Patreon or anything else, it has to, at some point, it might not be immediate, but it has to come back to me at some point and help the career and help the things that I'm doing now. And if you don't look at, okay, I don't want to do this book signing because it's $100 a table, and I'm going to make $80 and I'm going to lose $20. Well, that might not be true, because if you're handing out business cards and bookmarks and you're just talking to people, not selling them books, I stand in front of the table and I talk to everybody, and I just turn it on, and I'm just chatting with everybody and, shaking hands and kissing babies and all that. And my wife sits behind the table and she sells the books. And so that's kind of the way that I do it is I'm selling me. You might take a bookmark, you might take a business card, but down the line, I might see you again, or you might remember, hey, that was that funny guy that I hung out with at that book signing or that convention. And they might buy a book. And all I need is for you to buy one book. I need you to come in and buy a book. And I have 200 and something more books for you to buy off of Amazon or somewhere else. So that's the key to bring them in. And but not by buy my book, not by handing them a book and shoving it down their face, but by just being an over dramatic version of the real me, because the real me is actually really quiet. But when I become Mondo, that's what my wife says, I become Mondo, and I'm out there and I'm being loud and I'm joking around with people and I'm talking about M&Ms and bourbon and coffee and heavy metal music, whatever. And that's kind of the fun of it.
Well, I
You're
have
a
one
true
last.
entrepreneur. So I was going to say, are you teaching any courses?
No, a couple people have approached me to do that, and I just don't know if the problem. I'm going to be honest with you. The problem is the couple that of those that I've seen, especially when it's genre specific, the people that run them are like snake oil salesmen. These are people who have never had a sale in their life. They've had a couple of books out, and they're telling me I've sold millions and millions of copies of this book, and it's so easy to look, and a couple of clicks, and you go, you're selling 3 copies a week, and you're saying you're selling 10,000 books a month. I mean, so that kind of stuff, and I never wanted it to turn it to that where I start selling that. That's why we started the podcast. It's free. That's why I mentor other authors coming in. I do it for free. Now, do I say, hey, eventually buy a couple of my books to make me feel better? Sure, but I'm not doing the whole structure of all of that. And again, it's the technology part. It's the I'm afraid of learning something new.
I just feel like you have so much knowledge and expertise that you can help someone who is writing, publishing as a hobby actually have a profession and a business. And I think that's a great skill set there's so many people out there writing and it's just a hobby, and you've got it down to an exact science, really, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, and so I did retail management for over 20 years. I hated every second of it. I've killed people I've worked with and customers a million times, figuratively in stories, not in real life. And it was all of that. It's the fear of having to go back to that. That's what I always say. That's why I get up in the morning and I write when some days I don't want to, because I don't want to go back to that real job. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about all the facets of being an author. I was thrown out there pretty quick. I had lost my job as a retail manager 11 years ago. And I said, you know what, let me give this writing thing a real shot, because I'm kind of doing it as a hobby and I don't want to. This is what I've wanted to do since I was 12 years old. Is I read a Dean Koontz book and I wanted to be an author. And so that was, for me, that was kind of what it was. So what I like to do that, would I like to be able to teach it and bring it along? Yeah, I would love that. I would love to have people learn from me. And I'm really big on here's the mistakes I've made. I'm really big on these are the things I've done that might work for you, but might not, but they did not work for me. And I spent thousands of dollars on things that over the years that just did not work.
It's incredible. He should be a talking head. Talk about what he's doing here on our channel. But I really think you should pursue that, because you have a lot to give. And I know, just as a new author, I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. I'd like to learn more. I'm sure other people would too. We are just about out of time, and we didn't get to have you read yet. Would you like to read for us?
I can give you a quick chapter of the this is Shakedown, First Coast Thriller Series, Book 1. Book 4 is coming out in June. It'll be a 6-book series. I'll read one of the chapters for you real quick. Clayton Conway, he's the main character of the book. Clayton Conway wished he were dead right now. He turned his head to port and puked, the speed of the boat and the wind ripping his last meal from his mouth. His stomach burbled as he tried to remain calm and not crash the speedboat. The 2 idiots with him screamed and huddled to the stern, as close to the starboard side as they could get, as far away from Clayton's seasickness as possible. Not that there was much room in the cigarette boat, a 39-foot topfish they'd repoed from the owner's dock. Slow down, bro, before you get us all puking, Neil screamed, or get us dead. With such a big job, they'd hired another couple of teams to help out. So many men and women for 6 speedboats. Clayton had the extra 2 guys, and he wondered if it was a backup plan in case he couldn't get the hook done. He knew Neil and Xavier were more than capable of steering a boat. Clayton fought back another wave of nausea and tried to keep it steady. This was his first boat repo, and he'd been fighting it for 3 years, ever since he went to work for Jimmy D and D&D Recovery. He'd been adamant right from the beginning. He was only interested in part-time work and nothing on the water. Pickups, cars, SUVs, motorcycles, anything but boats. Jimmy D had agreed, but after 3 years of working for the guy, Clayton knew he'd been worked. Set up until a repo this big was needed. "Come on, Clay, this is a job that needs more manpower," Jimmy had said over dinner last night. Everyone invited to his home in Jacksonville Beach, a few blocks but a world away from where Clayton lived. "I need you to steer a boat for a few minutes, that's all." Clayton had glanced at Cornelius Neil Chase and Xavier Romo, two men Clayton had been working with lately. The two were poking holes in the bottoms of Budweiser cans and chugging them like they were at a frat house party. Jimmy D had laughed. He shook his finger while flipping burgers on the grill. Would you trust either of those meatheads with a $250,000 boat, even for a second? They're great when the owner's pit bull is let loose or a guy who didn't pay his bill decides to pull a shotgun. They'll be our backup on this one, but we're talking 5 speedboats all at once. The owner hasn't paid in months, and I scored this one. Tomorrow night, don't drink too much. Clayton had spent the rest of dinner trying to get out of it, but Jimmy D wasn't taking no for an answer. Now, Clayton puked again. If he had a death wish, he would have puked to the starboard side and covered both men in last night's hamburgers, hot dogs, and bourbon. He puked to the port side and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He swore he'd never do this again, no matter how good the money offered was. This wasn't worth it. Jimmy D met Clayton on the dock with a smile and a bottle of Oak and Palm coconut rum. Clayton waved off the bottle, and Jimmy D, his stomach buckling again. He tried to act calm and walk past where everyone else was standing, their boats already out of the river and getting loaded for transport. He bent over, hands on knees, and puked into the dark water. "You know what? On second thought, I'll hold on to the rum until you're feeling better," Jimmy D said. "When you're done getting sick, come over to the house. We're all going to celebrate." Clayton shook his head. "Going home," he mumbled. "Suit yourself." Jimmy D walked over and put a hand on Clayton's shoulder. He bent down. "I appreciate the sacrifice you made tonight. You showed the boys you're a team player. I appreciate it." Clayton could only nod. He stood up and took in a big gulp of fresh air. He loved being near the water, the smells, the views. Actually, being on the water was the problem. "Here, take it home. You earned it along with a nice payday. Take tomorrow off," Jimmy D said. He patted Clayton on the shoulder. "Get some rest, Clay." Clayton nodded. He took the bottle of rum and let Jimmy D turn away before he smiled. "Stop calling me Clay." Nope. Jimmy D walked back to the last boat just as they were taking it out of the water. So that's actually the second chapter of Shakedown. The first chapter is kind of a setup for the bad guys.
Excellent. Thank you. Wow. I pictured myself there.
I set this one in Jacksonville Beach area, which me and my wife love, and we live 20 minutes. It's a 20-minute drive from where we are, so we go there a lot for food and just to walk on the beach.
Well, it's been an honor having you here today. I'm going to spotlight you. If you can share with our audience, what's the best way for people to reach out to you to purchase your books, and who would you like to contact you?
So Armand Rosamilia is the easiest. I have all of my books there. I also have my print books for sale direct on the site as well, signed book. And I'm very active on Twitter, Armand Author. I have 132,000 followers on there, which I've built up over the years. And then Twitch, find me on Twitch, Armand Rosamilia. I'm usually on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jump into the chat with me and ask a question, comment, just all hang out.
I'm going to go and do that. Thank you.
Hope to see you over there.
Yes, and I'd love to have you come back and be on our business show. And
I would love to. I would. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and also the corner bookstore. That would be great. All right, thank you so much, Armand. I'll be in touch. You enjoy the rest of your day and keep up with the great work.
You too. Thanks a lot. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you again, because that was very enlightening. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a lot of good learning. Thank you. All right, Red, we have to jump over to the other studio for your Talking Head show. So I'm going to spotlight you. And if you can give your contact information and what you'll be discussing again today.
Very shortly, in about 10 minutes, 11 minutes, the Talking Head show today is going to be talking about heart health. Specifically, we're going to talk about not quite, I think maybe 5 or 6 heart diseases, what causes them and what we can do about it. There's about 12.5 individual things that affect the heart. We're not going to get into all today, but in the next week or two, we're going to cover them all. So if you know what's causing something, then you might be able to have the ability, in most cases, to stop that right in its tracks. So that's what we're talking about today. I can be reached at redolaughlin.com. That's Red, R-E-D, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN.com. So that's redolaughlin.com. And it's red at redolaughlin.com is the email address. Another email address I check quite often is red.olaughlin. That's OLAUGHLIN at gmail.com. Both of those I check on a regular basis. So got a question, more than happy to try to address it for you. And I'm going to take it back to Dr. JACALYN because I got about 9 minutes to get ready to go.
You go ahead and go. And I can verify that he does answer his emails because I email him how often, Red? It's like, oh, it's her again. It's her. You go ahead to the other studio and I'll be there in just a moment. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye.
JACALYN. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for telling people about our channel. We're all about education, entertainment, inspiration, and hope. And we really do appreciate each and every one of you who is out there supporting this journey. I love what I do. It's so much fun. We just met that wonderful gentleman, Armand, who gave so much incredible information, things that I had never heard about before. And I hope that you're learning and growing as a result of what you are witnessing here on our platform. So thanks so much. I'm going to head over to the other studio. Please do join us. You can stay wherever you are, wherever you're watching or listening. We'll be right back. Bye for now.